Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Ainav Avni, Untangled Healing, and I am an energy healer and an empowerment coach. I mostly work with people who suffer from chronic pain, chronic illness, or unexplained medical condition. And this podcast is really here as a message of hope for alternative healing, really. So, thank you for being here with us, and just sit back and find the message that you meant to be receiving today. And with me today, Susan Burrell. Susan, it's so lovely to have you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm curious about what we're going to talk about because it's always different, isn't it?
It really is. Yes, yes, absolutely. So let's get started with, tell us something about you.
Well, I think your listeners might want to know that. What do you want to know? Let me see. Um, because of talking, your show is about healing and chronic pain. I've been a type 1 diabetic for 30 years and insulin dependent, you know, multiple shots. I was the one that was absolutely freaked out climbing the ceiling if somebody wanted to give me a shot. And now I have to do it all the time and for 30 years. And so a couple years ago, I was building a retreat, an online retreat. And I had been teaching online classes. I teach others how to empowerment, self-empowerment, how to love yourself from the inside out, how to notice when your body is aching, or how to clear beliefs. Okay, I'm rewinding. uh, because when I became diabetic and I got out of the hospital, I started a very deep dive, and then I'll fast forward to a couple years ago. But I started a very deep spiritual dive. I started meditating daily. I was opening up to my spirit guides. I was reading anything that could help me rebalance my life, because diabetes is about being out of balance. It's about being over responsible, um, which is me. It's me. I've been over responsible. I still am over responsible. Hence, I'm still diabetic. So once I started down this really what I call my spiritual quest, it was another layer of my quest. What Because I've been questing since I was like 17, so many years. But one of the things I uncovered was a belief system I had. It came from my family of origin, probably my ancestors, all the way back.
Mm.
That uh, if I were to get really sick and die, or almost die, then they would love me.
Mm.
Isn't that amazing? And I almost died. So, afterwards, when that showed up, it revealed itself to me. I was like, okay, what is it I'm doing? Because I'm focusing on things that are unhealthy, and those unhealthy things, like being over responsible, having this belief that if I'm not loved, so if I die, then they'll love me. They'll realize, garbage like that. It led me into an ongoing inner exploration and what I call excavation of other belief systems
Mm.
that were not necessarily mine, but became mine. Like both families, both streams, and my spouse at the time, everybody had this belief system down through the ages that I'm unworthy. I'm not good enough. I think a majority of people on the planet have that belief system, but that belief system, for me, was also what caused me to continually try to please everybody and try
Mhm.
to take care of everything and control everything, because then they'd see how, again, valuable I am, how worthy I am, instead of looking within myself and learning how to love myself. So the last few years, 10 years plus, has been about, I went through divorce, and during that divorce, I had to really face who I was,
Mm.
and realize some of those beliefs weren't mine. they were not mine. They were my ex-husband's or my parents, or, and let go of those beliefs, really work to dissolve them so I could be happier, healthier. I could be free to live my life how I want. And that's basically what occurred. Is as I did that inner work, I began to love myself more than I ever have. I didn't realize I didn't respect myself. So I learned how to respect myself and hold myself in esteem. And so what happened a couple years ago, as I'm building this online retreat and having just come out of teaching a bunch of classes to hopefully funnel people into this retreat that was going to be amazing with some other healers that I know and work with, nobody signed up. Nobody signed up. I was expecting at least 100. Nobody signed up. And so I told my team, I have a lovely group of women and men who are my team. And I said, I got to get off the merry-go-round. I got to stop for a while and see what it is within me that's causing this. And so I started a daily deep dive again into what is it I'm thinking and believing about myself. And again, the unworthiness came up, the not feeling seen and heard, which was probably, the precursor to the diabetic idea that if I die, then they'll love me. I wasn't feeling seen and heard all my life. Yeah. Hello, I have bright red hair. Who can miss me in a crowd? But people do. So this deep dive just opened me up and cleared so much stuff. And what also happened, which I would recommend to your listeners, is I've always worked in support groups. When I have an issue, I call a group of women. I call a group of women to support me and each other in whatever it was. When I was a young mom, I called a group of moms, working moms, stay-at-home moms, homeschooling moms, because we were all in the same boat. And I wanted to learn how to best guide my son. So what I did is, when I did this hard stop, I called a group of practitioners, 6 practitioners, to make the agreement with me to do energy work every day on my behalf to help me heal my diabetes. Right. So here I was, starting with the outer experience. Oh, I've got diabetes. Let's get rid of that. Again, that's not, well, starting with wherever you are is the best way to start, because you got to start. But what it did is then took me into this inner layer and another inner layer and another inner layer, until I really began to focus on a higher vibration of love that flows now in me and through me. And I call it in every day, or I recognize it's been there all the time. Right. And so these women agreed to a 1-month experiment. And when we got done with 1 month, I said, okay, thank you, everybody. I'm still diabetic, but I'm learning a lot. And they said, well, we don't want to stop. So we've been doing a weekly prayer session, non-locally. Everybody lives in different places, for 3 years. 3 years. For me and for each other. And when somebody is going through an issue, they text the group, and the group immediately does some healing work, non-local healing work, to support that individual. And usually it's about catching the fear or the anger or the guilt before it downloads into a possible illness or dis-ease. So that's kind of that's who I am now. That's what I do. When I bring this up to people that don't do what I do, they often cross their eyes and, start to think about something else. So that's been my, up until now, current life experience. I'm still in the process of healing, chronic. Well, I'm going to take out that word chronic. Wow. I'm going to take out that word chronic. I had because I'm intuitive, and I listen on multiple levels. I was talking to a student of mine and asking how you doing, and she said, "Well, I actually am chronically depressed." And I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, whoa." I said, "Who told you you're chronically depressed?" And she said, "Oh, my doctor, my MD, right, the MD guy.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the pills. Here's the pills." Now, I have taken antidepressants on and off in my life, but for short periods of time to help me rebalance so I can then not use them and find my happy space. And so I was listening to her and I said, "You know what, honey, I don't think this is a chronic issue, even though you felt depressed. There's other stuff in your life that I know she's gone through that was the initiating factor for you to be depressed, and rightly so. Anybody would be depressed with the circumstances she lived with."
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, "I want you to kind of take that label off that you're chronically this way, because otherwise you won't be able to get off those pills. You won't be able to eventually find you're happy because you're constantly thinking, it's that belief system again, right?
Yeah.
Of I'm depressed, I'm chronically depressed. So this is never going away. I'm just going to live in depression the rest of my life." And so the reason why I had a reaction to her saying she was chronically depressed, I'm going to tell you out, is because my mom was chronically depressed. My mom was on so many antidepressants all my life. My mom became a pharmaceutical addict. If there was a magic pill, she took it. And then she'd go to another doctor to get a different magic pill that was actually supposed to treat the depression. At one point, she was getting really sick. She was on 3 different antidepressants and no doctor had checked her. And so she was becoming very toxic. Her body was in overload.
Yeah.
So I just, if there's an experience that you're having that seems ongoing, there's another, I believe this, it's not true for everybody maybe, but this is what I believe, that there is usually an initiating factor. There's either a trigger, a wound that got triggered, or a belief system that became so embedded that you don't even know you're operating on it. Like I was, I didn't even know. I thought I was worthless. Except my ex-husband was a narcissist and told me that every moment of every day for 28 years. So, hey, now I'm not, because now I get it that was his stuff and it's not me. So that's my story.
There's so many things here that are really interesting for me that I want to unpack a little bit for the listeners as well. I guess the first thing is, we spoke a little bit before, and I really believe, why I also bring empowerment into the things that I do is because when we are living our empowered life, when we are back into alignment, into our core, into what is right for us, not because the conditioning and everything that the society and everything that people were telling us about ourselves, but actually when we reach inside and we say, "I'm doing this because this feels right for me." When we're able to do that, a lot of the time pain or illnesses, they really nearly drop off because
Mhm.
we finally answer that message that we couldn't hear before.
Mhm.
When you were talking about things like finding these belief systems or letting go of the belief systems, regardless of whether they were your own or inherited or ancestral, how do you actually do that?
Okay. So, I do a lot of inner exploration, and when this idea that being devalued was ancestral, I then energetically through my own process of meditation went back as many generations as I could, and see to try and find the initial woman or man in my family of origin
Mhm.
who felt devalued, who felt worthless, who felt, and hello, there was a lot of them. And so then energetically, I I sent them love. I sent them forgiveness and compassion for what they had gone through.
Mm.
You know, I'm talking like the pioneer women that came out with west with their spouses, because that's my lineage. And then the men that had to, you know, make everything work. And then, so just sending a lot of compassion and forgiveness, and just saying, hey, I understand. I totally understand. And you did the best you could. Right. I remember years ago, I was seeing this therapist and talking about my parents, because everybody has to talk about their parents when they go into therapy at first, you know. And she said, your parents did the best they could. And I'm like, what the hell? No, they didn't. But
No,
yes, they did. And
yeah.
so did our ancestors. And they were operating with what they were given at the time that they were living. And then it got passed down, and it's beliefs that got passed down. Like, one of the beliefs is that if you're a woman in the family, you take care of everybody. Who said that? Who made that up? That's right. And I had to fight through that this year, because I automatically defaulted into taking care of everybody.
Mm.
And it was horrible. And my health took a huge dive, because I was trying, again, over responsible. Right. So, so envisioning your ancestors, seeing a line from your heart through their hearts all the way up as far as you can go. You don't even have to know when it ends. And then just through that, like cable, that love space within you, sending love, compassion, forgiveness, understanding. And then what I do is I say, and it stops with me. It
Mm.
stops with me. And then I got chills. And then I turned to the future generation, my son and my 7 generations later, grandkids, if and when that happens, and say, you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are going to excel, because love is coming from all of your ancestors now. So you can become the catalyst for transmutation of the past, and seed into the future, a higher frequency of love, a higher vibration of love, so that those that come after you know that they're loved. And I think what we're watching on the planet right now with all of the conflicts is because so many people are feeling so denigrated and not loved, and so they're reacting and having issues with each other that has nothing to do with each other, really. If you fall into not fall in if you really align yourself with a high frequency of love, because that's all there is in the entire cosmos, then conflicts will resolve without a lot of hate and anger and destruction. They can resolve in a moment, if we all just continue to align with the love and the light that we are. So that's how I healed my ancestral, and continue to, because stuff crops up and I'm like, oh, look, that I had thought of that. Let's go and see where that started.
Yeah. I guess it's interesting because, it's like when you have that belief system, you operate from that belief system. So anything and everything, any interaction, any conversation that you have is through this lens of this belief system. And so all of a sudden, when you clear that, your whole everything changes, right? And so what I'm hearing from you is that basically, as long as you're keeping your vibrations high and you kind of reminding yourself of everything that you just cleared, you won't fall back into that, hey, this is my habit, this is how I usually interact, or this is how I usually do things. So it's you do a little bit of that until it becomes a new habit, which is
Correct. And I'm guilty of falling into I'm guilty of being triggered and spinning down a rabbit hole and then coming back. Everybody does it. But I've had clients come and say, well, that's just who I am. And I'm like, who told you that's who you are? You're not that. You can be whatever you want. And I personally am living proof of that, because I came out of just a horrible emotional and mental abuse relationship,
Mm.
that, you know, a lot of people would just crawl under a rock and say, I'm done. And I focused on, I wanted to be free, I wanted to be happy, and I wanted to love myself more than I ever did. And that's what's occurred. And consequently, because that's my focus, and when I'm not in that alignment, I have to go back to it. But consequently, I met an amazing, kind, loving man and fell in love. I have a phenomenal life. I get to do pretty much what I want. I don't have a boss telling me what to do and when to do it. I am an entrepreneur, and if I want to work, I work, and if I don't, I don't. You know, if I want to travel, we travel. And then I come back and I do what I want. And it's a happier existence. I'm telling everybody, it's a happier existence when
Yeah.
you can come into that recognition that you are this amazing divine spark of light that was meant to be here, especially at this time, to bring light, to help heal the planet and humanity. We're at a very high calling time in human history.
Yeah. And you mentioned raising your vibrations. How do you do that on a day-to-day basis? How do you make sure that you are in that high vibration?
So what I do, and it's taken, okay, umpteen years, 30 plus years. What I do is when I meditate, I ground myself in my heart center. I breathe into the heart. You got to get out of the head, because the head just messes you up. It's a binary thinking machine that is constantly problem solving. But the truth of and all your solutions reside in your heart center, which is the access point, I think, to source energy, to higher consciousness, to that I am presence, whatever you want to call it, God, Allah, whatever.
Mhm.
It resides within the heart. And so when I drop in, I've taught myself to drop into the heart. I open my heart with love. I breathe in love. I exhale love until I feel like I'm in an atmosphere of love. In fact, those were mantras I used. I live and move in an atmosphere of love. When I was experiencing a physical challenge, I had something with my eyes that got healed. I was seeing a doctor and he thought he did it, but no, it was my group that helped me, because I started saying, I see with the eyes of love. I live and move in a high frequency or an atmosphere of love. And so I you open up to love, and then you listen. You know, I work with my spirit guides. This last 3 years, I started working with archangels. Never did that. Pretty powerful, because they know exactly what you need, and you don't have to explain it to them. You know, oh, see, I need this because my big toe hurts, and or
Yeah.
whatever it is. I
Yeah.
don't have money to pay my rent. No, they know exactly what you need. You just have to invite them to work with you. Same with the spirit guides. Your spirit guides, you have them from the moment you're born, and they're here to help guide you. Instead of, if you're getting yourself in a tizzy, instead of getting upset or driving down the road and you think you're supposed to go right and they tell you to go left, if you listen within to your intuition, which is usually higher beings like guides, they will help you
Mhm.
to recorrect your course, to go to where you need to be, whether it's within your heart and mind and your body or in the physical world. And so I recommend that. I also work with colors. I work with rays of light that have helped with the rays of light helped with my healing my eyes. I worked with the emerald green light, which is for healing. It's also for abundance. And I just kept putting the frequency, that light behind where the eye was affected. And eventually it was gone. And I heard when I was meditating from the angels and my spirit guides, oh, you're done. It's healed. You
Okay.
don't need to see this doctor. And sure enough, when I went into the appointment, he's like, oh, well, that happened quickly. Okay, I don't need to see you for like a year.
Yeah.
So going back to being diabetic for 30 years, right? If I can do that with my eyes, and originally I had started with both eyes. One doctor said it was both eyes.
Hmm.
And then I started doing work. I called my prayer group. I said, I need work. You guys need to help me. Because I'm not sure. And they supported me. And then when I saw the second doctor, he said, oh, it's just this one eye. And then I was supposed to be getting shots. I got one shot and I came back and he said, oh, it's done. He said multiple shots for several weeks. One
No,
shot.
not your reality.
No, no, no.
Nice, nice. I mean, I am also part of intention groups, and that's a very, very interesting to get together with other people and set intentions for healing and you know whatever really people want. I definitely enjoy it. But tell me, so the title of the conversation is "Live Your Empowered Life." What's behind that?
Um, well, it just comes out of my wanting to be empowered. And I wanted to live that kind of a life. Um, and and I think living from a place of, like we've been talking about, that empowerment resides within you. Nobody else can give it to you. It's like women, men too, I guess. We were trained, my generation, to get a husband, right? The man takes care of you. And so women were constantly outsourcing their power and their love, self-love and esteem to someone else. And fortunately, that's turning around now. And many women of younger generations don't see that that's necessary. So learning to live in a place where I source me, I love me. It's part of what makes my relationship with my current spouse so healthy, because I love me. And he said, when we were dating, he said, um, I'm not going to make you happy. It's not my job to make you happy. I said, absolutely. It's not my job to make you happy. It's our jobs to make us happy. And then in relationship, we're both happy, loving myself and he loves himself. And we auto correct when we don't, but it brings more happiness and joy and fun into the relationship, because we're trying not to be dependent on each other to make us happy. So consequently, he gets to do a lot of what he wants to do, and I do what I want to do. And oftentimes we get to do that together.
Yeah, I think it's I like what you're saying because again, to be empowered is a choice. It's I'm not maybe it sounds like I'm judging. I'm not trying to judge. I'm trying to say that it's very easy to be in that place of I can't do this, or the victimhood, or life is too hard and I don't know how to do it, and it's quite in no time at all you can actually turn it around and recognize exactly what you're saying, that you no longer want to continue with the way that you are at the moment, and you want to look after yourself, and you want to do enough with all these other energies that come from everywhere else. But I like from what you're saying is that thing of you're consciously or you're constantly in a state of conscious awareness of where it is, where am I, who am I with, how am I, how is my interaction, am I expecting, am I trying to lean on or not lean on, maybe dump on someone something of mine, so it's very interesting because it's a lot of the time people are not doing that. We're not in awareness. We're actually in routine and habits and automatic kind of behavior. So I like what you're saying, and I'm curious also. I know that you wrote a book about empowered life, so I'm wondering if this is what you're teaching, your people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I ran my victim story for many years, and I would go around and collect people that I could tell my victim story to get agreement that yes, I I had been done wrong. I'd been wronged. And after a while, I learned that it just got me more of the same, right? Because what you focus on multiplies. So once I began to really understand that it's a spiritual principle, it's one of the spiritual laws. There's many of them. But once I began to really comprehend that, I stopped running my story. And I still, if a story starts, I give myself 1 or 2 times to speak the story out loud to someone. And then I try not to say it again, because all it's doing is keeping that story, that experience you don't want, in place. It's holding it in place. So yeah. So waking up and remaining conscious is really our only job here on planet Earth right now. And so in my book, what I did was I put a lot of the processes that I did personally while I was going through divorce and trying to really find my empowerment, my self-esteem again. And so, because I did a lot of journaling, I'm big about journaling, because to me, it's not about just saying, here's what I did today, or it's about getting the muck, getting the stuff, that the story out of your head down on paper, so you can close a book and you don't look at it again. You don't have to revisit it. So, journaling for me is big. And I also found that as I began to clear that muck, I could hear my inner voice. I could hear the messages that my heart center, the wisdom of my soul, had been saying to me all along. But I couldn't hear it before because I was running my story, So, so I had, and then out of that, in order to hold my attention, I guess, on what it is I wanted, my intention, I started writing and working affirmations. Like I said earlier, I live and move in an atmosphere of love, and focusing on that. If I saw something, I don't read or watch the news that is so negative, it destroys my inner peace and balance, and I can't do my healing work for myself and others if I'm not in sync with that high vibration of love. So I don't listen to that stuff. So the affirmations then if I would bring that idea into my heart center and allow that to seed, and then erase whatever I had seen or heard, or Now, sometimes I had to stomp around and yell and scream and be upset about the thing I heard or saw. But once I cleared that reactivity, then I could rebalance again into that place of love. And I have a lot of other skills that are in the book, and I do guided meditations. I do guided meditations for me. It's like I'll drop in and I'm like, oh, I think I'm supposed to focus on this. And then all of a sudden I'm guided. So I do a lot of guided meditations for my clients when I work with clients. And then I have them on an app called Insight Timer. So you can go, I have tons of guided meditations on there now, and you can go and listen to one, and hopefully it helps you get you to the place you're looking for, within, because it's all an inside job, right?
Totally. Susan, it's nearing time for us to say goodbye, but tell me, just before we go, what one thing would you like to our listeners to go away with?
I think if I could have a wish, my wish for everyone, my wish for humanity, is that we remember the truth of our being. And that truth is that we are love and light. And that's all there is. All the other stuff is meaningless and not real. And when we focus on love and light, miracles and healings happen instantaneously.
I like that. Very, very timely, of course. Of course. Thank you so much, Susan, for being here with us and for sharing your journey and the wisdom that you bring to the world. I'm going to put all of your links underneath the chat wherever people see it or hear it. I invite people to get in touch. If people want to get in touch with you, people want to leave messages or comments here, of course, let's have that conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
You.
Thank you.